You are born, and the document already exists. Somewhere in a registry maintained by the Ministry of State Security, in a file you will never read, your classification has been written before you drew your first breath. This is not bureaucracy. This is destiny, manufactured, filed, and sealed. The songbun system divides every human being in North Korea into 3 classes based on the perceived loyalty of your ancestors during the revolution, the Japanese occupation, and the Korean War. 51 subcategories. 3 broadcast tiers. Core. Wavering. Hostile. Your grandfather's choices made decades before your conception, have already decided where you will sleep, what you will eat, whether your children will attend university or die in a labor camp whose name will never appear in any document the outside world can access. 25 million people. One system. This is what it feels like at every level. Level 1. The condemned. You wake at 4:30 am in a village near the Chinese border in North Hamgyong province. The cold comes through the walls because the walls are thin and the coal ration ran out 11 days ago. Your grandmother's brother fled south in 1953. He has been dead for 40 years. His defection lives in your file like a scar that never heals. You are hostile class. You work a collective farm. Your Inminbin leader, a woman named Mrs. Cho, who has held the position for 19 years, records your departure time in a notebook. She records your return. She records who visits. She records whether your lights stayed on past curfew. Every Saturday evening you stand before your neighbors in the community hall and confess your ideological shortcomings for the week. You confess that you did not study the Supreme Leader's most recent directive with sufficient devotion. 3 neighbors criticize you. You bow. You sit. The ritual continues. Your daily caloric intake is approximately 700 calories. The government ration system collapsed during the famine of the 1990s, a famine the state does not acknowledge occurred, and killed somewhere between 600,000 and 2 million people, depending on whose estimate you encounter. None of which are precise, because precision would require acknowledgement. You supplement with corn kernels gleaned from harvested fields and wild greens foraged from the slopes above the village. Your teeth are deteriorating. You are 5'2". The average South Korean male your age stands 5'8". The 6-inch difference is not genetic. It is the songbun system measured in calcium and bone density and the specific pallor of skin that has never received adequate nutrition. You are not permitted to leave your province without a travel document issued by the local security office. The radio in your home is hardwired to receive only the Korean Central Broadcasting Station. You have never spoken to a foreigner. The world outside the border exists for you only as state media describes it, South Korea a wasteland of poverty and American occupation. The citizens of Pyongyang the most fortunate human beings on earth. You have never been to Pyongyang. You are not permitted to enter Pyongyang. Pyongyang is not your city. Level 2. The invisible middle. You exist in the wavering class, which means you are neither condemned nor trusted. Your father works at a state cement factory in South Pyongan province. Your mother teaches primary school. You memorize the Supreme Leader's speeches the way students elsewhere memorize multiplication tables, not because you were inspired, but because failure to recite accurately was not an academic failing. It was a political one. Your teacher's political officer recorded ideological performance scores. Those scores entered your file. Your file determines your future. You serve 10 years in the Korean People's Army. Mandatory. Your infantry unit deploys near the DMZ with Soviet-era equipment that predates your birth. Your commanding officer earned his rank through songbun classification and political loyalty rather than operational competence. You understand this without being told. Promotions here follow bloodline, not battlefield. You return to civilian life at 32. Factory position. Monthly salary, 3,000 to 4,000 North Korean won. At the official exchange rate, that is approximately 3 to 4 American dollars. The state stores that accept one are frequently empty. The Jangmadang, the informal black markets that spread across the country after the famine, operate on real supply and demand, and a single kilogram of rice costs 5,000 won. Your salary cannot purchase 1 kilogram of rice. You don't ask how this is possible. You know how this is possible. You file it somewhere it can't touch your resolve. Your wife sells homemade noodles at the market before dawn. You repair bicycles 3 evenings a week. The state prohibits private commerce in principle. Enforcement has grown selective because the official economy no longer functions, and the government knows it. You survive inside the gap between the law and the reality. That gap is your entire life. Level 3. The core province. Your grandfather was a partisan. He fought alongside Kim Il-sung against the Japanese, and his loyalty purchased a classification that your family has carried for 3 generations. Core class. You attended Kim Il-sung University in Pyongyang, the country's most selective institution, and studied civil engineering. You were assigned to a state construction enterprise in a provincial capital. Your apartment receives electricity 4 to 6 hours per day. You own a government-issued mobile phone that operates on the domestic Koryo Link network. No internet. No international calls. You are a member of the Korean Workers' Party, which is not optional for core class professionals. Weekly meetings. Mutual criticism sessions. Your political officer monitors your enthusiasm. Insufficient enthusiasm accumulates in your file like sediment. You tell yourself this is normal. You have known nothing else. So it is. Level 4. The showcase city. You live in Pyongyang. This single fact separates your existence from 98% of the country's population more completely than any salary or title could. The capital is not a city. It is a curated display, buildings tall and clean, streets wide and orderly, monuments that dwarf everything human around them. Residents are vetted by the Ministry of State Security. Hostile class citizens are not permitted inside the city limits. The capital contains a version of North Korea that does not exist elsewhere in North Korea. Your apartment has a refrigerator, a washing machine, electricity for more hours each day than any provincial residence receives. You shop at stores stocked with imported Chinese goods, domestic electronics, clothing approximating modern fashion. You attend performances at the Mansudae Art Theater. You visit the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the preserved bodies of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il lie under glass, and you bow with an emotion that is not entirely performed, because the reverence was planted in you before you could question it, in an education system that makes no distinction between patriotism and worship. You work in a government ministry. Perhaps foreign trade, perhaps the party's propaganda department. You do not examine the work too closely. That's the nature of the work. Level 5. The Armed Summit. You are a general officer in the Korean People's Army, commanding approximately 80,000 soldiers along the DMZ. You live in the Ryongseong district of Pyongyang in a villa 3 kilometers from the Supreme Leader's primary residential compound. You drive a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, imported through sanctions circumvention networks managed by Bureau 39, the party organ that generates foreign currency through a combination of legitimate trade, counterfeiting operations, and narcotics trafficking that moves product through networks in Southeast Asia and Africa. You eat Japanese beef, French wine, Swiss chocolate on Wednesday evenings. Your power is real and absolutely conditional. A commissar system embeds political officers at every level of your command structure, and those officers report directly to the organization and guidance department on your loyalty, your private statements, your moods after difficult meetings. You have watched colleagues disappear, men you served with for 30 years, present on Tuesday, absent from every meeting afterward. Their names unspoken. You don't ask what happened. You don't want to know. Asking about the disappeared is itself a political act that can make you the next subject of inquiry. You file it somewhere it can't touch your resolve. You've been filing things there for decades. The drawer is full. You keep filing. Level 6. The architects. You are a senior party official. Perhaps a department director in the Central Committee. Perhaps a member of the State Affairs Commission. You have traveled. Beijing. Moscow. Once, a UN session in New York, where you walked through Midtown Manhattan and stood in front of a bodega at 3 a.m. watching an ordinary American choose between 17 types of orange juice. You returned to Pyongyang. You continued managing the apparatus that tells 25 million people South Korea is a wasteland. You did not experience this as contradiction. You experienced it as professional competence. The gap between what you've seen and what you broadcast is not a source of guilt. It is a skill you have refined over a career. You are very good at it. You maintain accounts in Chinese banks near the border. You control assets that are technically state property and functionally personal. The legal distinction is a courtesy everyone performs and no one believes. Your family is safe. Your children attend elite schools. Your future is secure. Some nights you believe that. Some nights you don't. Level 7. The inner ring. You are among the 30 people who constitute Kim Jong-un's closest advisory circle. Your food is tested before you consume it by a dedicated team that has held this function their entire careers. You travel in armored convoys that commandeer entire highways. You vacation at private resorts on the eastern coast that appear on no public map. You have access to international internet. Satellite television. Foreign media. You watch the outside world on a flat-screen television imported from Japan, while 25 million compatriots live inside an informational quarantine you help design and enforce. You expected, at some point, to feel the weight of this. What you actually feel is the practiced numbness of someone who made their choice so long ago that the choice no longer presents itself as a choice. You know what happened to Jang Song-thak? Executed December 2013, the charges assembled in 72 hours, his name removed from photographs, his existence officially annulled. You know what happened to Kim Jong-nam, assassinated in Kuala Lumpur International Airport in February 2017, VX nerve agent applied to his face in a public terminal by 2 women who believed they were filming a prank television show. The distance between where you stand and where they ended is measured in one man's mood on one morning. There is no appeals process. There is no warning system. There is no precedent that reliably predicts which morning it will be. You don't sleep well. You haven't in years. You call it something else. Level 8. The Eternal. You are Kim Jong-un, 3rd generation, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Chairman of the State Affairs Commission, General Secretary of the Korean Workers' Party, the center of a personality cult that describes you in language other civilizations reserve for deities. You are 39 years old, and you have held absolute power since your father's death in December 2011, when you were 27, and most foreign analysts predicted the system would fracture within 18 months. It did not fracture. You made certain of that. You control nuclear weapons. Approximately 40 warheads by outside estimates you have never confirmed or denied. You control where 25 million people live, what information enters their minds, who they marry, what work they perform, whether their children eat or starve. You live in a series of compounds connected by private roads and private rail lines. Your personal armored train carries its own food supply and independent communication systems. Your security detail numbers in the hundreds. You trust no one. The system you inherited was specifically engineered to make trust unnecessary, loyalty maintained through surveillance, incentive, and the demonstrated consequence of disloyalty, demonstrated publicly enough and often enough that belief in the system is no longer required. Compliance is sufficient. Compliance is all it has ever needed to be. You are the most isolated leader on Earth and the most powerful force in the lives of 25 million human beings who have never known any other gravity. The mountains surrounding Pyongyang Do not ask whether they are loved. Neither do you. Love is not the instrument. Obedience is the instrument. And from the hostile class farmer waking at 4:30 am in North Hamgyong province, to the general in his Mercedes in Ryeongsong, to the party official who has seen Manhattan and returned to broadcast the opposite, they obey. Not because they believe. Because the alternative has been shown to them in specific, irreversible detail. That man you were before all this, the child at the beginning, he doesn't exist anymore. You made sure of it. The system made sure of it. Somewhere right now, in a village in the northern provinces, a child is being born. The songbun file already exists. The boundaries of that child's life have already been drawn by people the child will never meet. Using logic the child will never be permitted to question. Enforced by a system so total that the child will likely never understand that a system exists at all. Because the information required to. Recognize a cage requires a vantage point outside the cage, and the cage has no outside. The child will recite the teachings, bow before the portraits, attend the Saturday sessions, live inside the boundaries and never know the boundaries are there. The file waits, the system continues, the mountains don't move,